things? All right. All right. Well, welcome to our first press conference of March. It is, got on my green, it's starting to turn over into spring and get outdoors. What a great weekend this past weekend was. I certainly played in 2 tennis tournaments this past weekend, had a great time. But what's exciting about March is coming up is the Bayou Hills Run, which is really the Pensacola Sports Association is joining with us today to talk about it. This is the run that the city is coming together with for the 5K and 10K championships, formerly known as Bayou Hills Run, which is coming in March 28th. Runners will now have the opportunity to earn the title of city champion, and overall winners will be recognized by the city council. We're excited about this partnership with Pensacola Sports for this event, and it also benefits Creative Learning Academy. To learn more, you can register by visiting BayouHillsRun.org, and I was going to introduce Ray Palmer to come forward and talk a little bit about Bayou Hills.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very quickly, we took over the Bayou Hills Run. First, we started managing it for Creative Learning School several years ago. Then they asked us if we would like to continue the event as basically the owner. And we were happy to do that because it is a run that has tremendous history. Bayview Park, as you all know, is a beautiful setting. That East Hill neighborhood is a tremendous place to be. And so we came up with the idea of we don't really have a run that has the tag of being the championship. So we reached out to Brian Cooper and the City Parks and Recs and others within the city and suggested the idea. They have completely embraced it. I would say it has been a tremendous success. Their enthusiasm to help us create this championship so that you can be the proud bragging rights of the champion of Pensacola in a 10K and a 5K. We're excited. The numbers are up over last year, a good 10% over where we were today last year. And again, we're thrilled. Mayor, thank you so much. You're right. It's a great spring day, and we're ready to go.
Ray, I'm not going to spoil your fun, but I know you got a press conference for us tomorrow with some big news.
I do.
About Pensacola.
We're not going to see you all there.
We're just going to tease it for tomorrow. We're not going to say anything until.
Is that more of a county matter tomorrow?
It's more of a whole community matter.
Yeah,
it's bigger than just the city. So, but it's exciting. So we will. We've got a big announcement tomorrow. So looking forward to that. But certainly, I think the Bayou Hills Run should be great, and we look for all those that participate and join in it. I will be tomorrow. I think I'm going to be there, be able to stay for the press conference and then leave after that. And I'm going to spend the next 2 days in Tallahassee working on a couple of things. Many of those things are still working at dealing with preemption, things that we continue to be challenged with, cities and counties across the state of Florida. But one of the things that we continue to have, it came out at the last council meeting again, some of the concerns that are still communicating, people upset about 5G, and we want to communicate the things of sort of where cities are and what we can and can't do. And so after last year's, or a couple of years ago when they passed some things that cities can't do, we can't reject 5G. We can't just say we're not going to do it. In other words, it's prevented cities and counties from basically doing that. It's also prevented us from delaying the permitting process. It does mean that you have to get a permit, and we have enforced that. We've even caused some of them to be taken down to be re-put up when they put the permit in. So again, but they have to get a permit, but we can't delay the permitting process that's required. We can't require companies to co-locate, although we have clearly asked that they co-locate, and we will continue to do so. We were asking that we find ways for them to co-locate with DOT equipment. We asked that last year as well. So we believe that co-location could solve a lot of our problems, but unfortunately we can't require it. And also we can't charge fees higher for the use of city property. So we are limited to that $150 charge, so we can't charge anything more. But there are some things we can do, and I do want to say that we have been doing them. We can draft an ordinance for aesthetic standards, and 5G companies must adhere to it. We've been working with that with Greg Harding. He has been requiring them in the historic areas to place to place certain aesthetics in the poles, and they have been working with them. We have met with the companies that were there because this is one of the things we can do, and we have asked them to comply with us, and they have indicated they would comply with the law and what was required. We can't deny unsafe placement of equipment, so that's the same thing, putting poles clearly in the way of line of traffic sight or blocking up our sidewalks with ADA. That was one of the things we were real concerned about, and we have done that. I mean, I can say our inspections people have been making sure that that these don't pose any kind of a unsafe risk to citizens. We can maintain construction requirements, and again, that they have insurance and performance bonds, and then we can work collaboratively with them to make sure that these things implemented what they can do. So we've been trying to do that. Our whole goal in this whole process, we also, when I've gone to DC, and I'll be there next week, when I've gone to DC, we've talked about asking the FCC to go out and do an independent study to figure out what is the real challenge with health risks to this, an independent third party, because we certainly believe all those things need to be done. These are all things that we have asked for, and we continue to ask for, and we empathize and sympathize with citizens who are upset. But ultimately, we don't control that. Even some people who came down here last week and wanted a reduction on their property taxes, we don't control that either. If Chris Jones decides to give you a break on your property taxes, he sets what your taxes are. We simply charge the millage that we charge. So again, understanding who can do what in the process is fairly important, and we're trying to adhere to the things we can do and continue to work with those things we can do rather than focus on those that we can't. Now, at the same time, this council has passed a resolution asking for them to get out of the preemption and put back in the ability for us to look at things from a local level. We passed that last year. It's one of the things I've continued to talk with legislators, but I don't think, if you've probably seen the session, that's going anywhere. They don't tend to like to reverse once they've done a preemption. So we're out there, we're looking at things, we're continuing to move forward. But again, these are things we're trying to comply with the law as we understand it from the state of Florida. So that was a little bit about what we could and could not do relative to 5G. The other thing that's become kind of a big issue is certainly sidewalks and where we are. We're continuing to work through our sidewalk project list, which was prioritized back an ADA sidewalk back in 2017. We completed again a study about where they needed to go in. We looked at where we had challenges. We are going to be putting in about 16,000 linear feet of sidewalk with 215 ADA curb ramps. With the budget available, Public Works was able to put out 5 ADA sidewalk projects each fiscal year. And again, right now, for the fiscal year 2020, the city has completed 1 project within the CRA core, and a contract has recently been awarded for a second project in 2020.
I was just going to say that first number is what we've already done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the first number, the 16,000, that's almost 3 miles of linear feet that we've already done, and 215 curb cuts that we've already done. I see down here later on we still have about 12,000 linear feet to do, which means we still got about 2 miles of sidewalk to do, and we've got about 1,800 curb ramps. So if we have not gotten your sidewalk, and I know we had some people here that called in later, we have sidewalk. This is going to continue to go out through 2023. Our challenge is some people were like, well, why don't you move our sidewalk up? Well, the only way we can move it up is by moving somebody else back. And again, this is the challenge we've got. So I know we've had some council people who have not been happy, and I've continued to tell them, if you get 3 other council members decide to delay their project to let you move yours forward, more power to you. We will comply with whatever happens, but we are working a plan. The plan has been put in place. It's still out there. We're going to continue to do that. Now, on our lighting plan, we actually stopped what was happening, but we're going to implement what we just did now in the downtown, and we've said we were going to hold another town hall and then redo a lighting plan based on what citizens tell us. I'm more than happy to do that. But again, once you set in motion these plans, you really need to stick to them to finish them out. And I think that's very important in this process. And unfortunately, your sidewalk may be allocated to 2023, but that's just We will get to it. We will get all the ones we get done. Derek and his group are doing a great job moving through, picking those things up. So we will get to all of them. Many of them are out there. So if you have a damaged sidewalk, continue to tell us at 311. We'll look and see what we can do. But chances are you may be in this next 2 miles of sidewalk that we're going to continue to put in. So again, realize that we are coming out there. We are still working through that process. One of the other things we got going on is the cleanup. We had our second cleanup over in East Pensacola Heights, and we collected 68 tons of bulk waste, along with 91 tires and 1,400 gallons of paint. The cleanup was over 2,000 houses in the cleanup area. And again, our next one will be March 28th in the northern section of East Hill. I hope that's not in the Bayou Hills Run area. We might have to coordinate where we are to make sure we're not picking up in Bayou Hills. But I just noticed that. But other than that, everything looks pretty good. So we'll just have to avoid some running over there. But again, we will be out there doing our next cleanup on the 28th, and we will be looking forward to being in East Hill. Something else you probably saw, something went out last week, the Blue Wahoos netting. The City of Pensacola and the Blue Wahoos have partnered to expand the netting, protective netting at the Blue Wahoo Stadium to increase safety for fans, employees, and to address those concerns about dangerous foul balls. The protective netting will now run the entire length of both baselines at the stadium. And the city is paying for this out of basically a repair and replacement. It's a capital fund that money from the Wahoo's renting goes into that. So again, it's fees that happen from the Blue Wahoos that go into that fund. It's only available for capital expenses, and that's what's going to be paying for it. So again, that will be happening, and it will be in place for opening day, which is going to be Thursday, April 9th, 2020. So we are working through that. The Wahoos contracted it, and we will be paying for the vendor so we can get it in time for the first of the year. So we're excited about that and think it will provide safety improvements at the stadium. I also did want to comment. Last week we had a good meeting on Friday with the DIB related to parking. While I certainly know the article said it was do nothing, there was a lot that was not do nothing. It's do nothing for the time until we can figure out some parking, how we work in areas that we do parking that are not exactly within the DIB limits. And I think we're continuing to work on that, whether it's going to be the city or whether the DIB and how we do that. But I do think there was a lot of constructive good that came out of that in talking about how we do things going forward. And it actually, for short-term parking, it is going to give people that want to come down here and really only use short-term parking an ability to have free usage of parking, but they got to turn. Those spots have to leave. So again, I think it's going to offer some of the things we want. The other big thing that we talked about is getting control of the county parking lot and repairing the elevator so that it can be utilized. To me, that opens up nights and weekends dramatically, and having control of that, you can really, from a flat rate price, park most of the people in downtown that need to use stuff and have a significant amount of parking there that frees up spaces other places. Of course, the parking we're going to put in here on Spring Street. So I do think we're going to kind of adjust. And then we also talked about signage. I didn't see it. See Kareth back there. I know we talked about signage and helping people find wayfinding signs, especially that Cedar Street lot that's in front of the Stifel Nichols building. That building is available for parking on nights and weekends, and it's free, and I don't think most people know that. We got to do a better job of wayfinding. So a lot of things that were discussed in that meeting I think will be implemented. So while it said do nothing for the moment, I believe that's to let us get through with some legality details, and once we get those things taken care of, we'll probably will be moving forward. If those, I think Jim was there. I think of the tickets that were given, it's like 22,000 citations were given inside the DIB area. There were only like 403 that were given outside of the DIB area. So we're continuing to work through some of those things, but the vast majority of challenges we have parking are in the actual DIB area. So we will continue to keep working with that. But I do think we're getting close to addressing some better parking opportunities for us to get that better and give people a little bit more what what they can utilize in a clearer, cheaper, and safer way downtown. So we're excited about what that offers. Now again, all the private lots will still have their own private thing, but if you pull into one of the red lots, that's a private lot. As we were said, as Lisa said, ours is kind of that teal color. So we're the teal parking, they're the red parking. If you do park in the red parking, you do need to comply with their rules. Those aren't city spaces. We're still talking about, do we do something to make consistent enforcement, and we're still working through that issue as that topic continues to happen. But I do think this is going to create a better parking experience for most everybody as we can get resolved through some of these issues that we talked about on Friday. So I think that is good. Lastly, one of the things I forgot to talk about last week when Singapore is just the importance of working together and working a plan. Everything that we saw there, these were 10-year plans, 15-year plans that they had been working on. It requires an ability to set a goal and then continue to go through it. And that's often, for them, it's a little bit easier because they don't have as many political administrations. But for us, I think it's one of the challenges that we have. I mean, I think every administration needs its ability to set some things that are its priorities, but at the same time, executing the same consistent goal is what allows us to get something done, like what's going to happen on our waterfront. And certainly, I think that's important just the same way as a sidewalk or coming up with a good program on our street lighting and sticking with it, not yanking it around every 2 years because something else happens in the political process. If we get a goal and it's good for the city, we need to run that plan through and continue to see it through to its fruition. I think that's one of the things that came out of my experience and seeing, and just the challenges that they work with in coming together and creating long-term goals. So I think those are awfully important for us as well, and keeping us going in that direction. But that's all for this week. Let me I do want to say next week I guess we'll have a press conference, but I won't be here. I will be in Washington D.C. Next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I will see you again back on the 16th. I'll look forward to seeing you then, right before St. Patrick's Day. So I'll see you then. I have to wear my green again. But it is, again, a good way to start March. And boy, we had a great weekend this past weekend. So Pensacola looked great, and I think Pensacon turned out real successful. I didn't get any text or other things I'm sure there were minor issues here and there, but nobody sent me an urgent text or email over the weekend, so I guess that means everything worked fairly smoothly, and the Pensacon turned out having a great event, and that's great, and it was successful, and we're very excited about it. And I guess we'll have to turn our airport will return to just being an international airport now, so we'll no longer be intergalactic for at least 11 months. But ready to answer your questions. Yes.
On the parking, the one proposal that you were talking about was the first 40 minutes for free.
That's in the one section. That's in the most utilized purple section.
Why 40 instead of something like maybe an hour or an hour and a half, which seems more restaurant friendly?
Again, I did not. I think those were pop-ins for retail. I think the idea is if you want to do the restaurant, we want to push you into, if you're going to go a little bit longer, push you either into something you can walk or go to one of those decks. And again, that's the idea of what they're trying to do. As they go through it, I couldn't answer. I mean, I was there and I saw the presentation. I don't know why they chose the minutes they chose, but I do know that as you get further, that was like as you get further away from Palafox, it doesn't allow you longer to go in that first bit of free. But as you get closer to the center of where everything was, they wanted to keep it on a fairly fast turnaround. And I think some of that was more for retail, so that those retail customers would be able to turn over.
On the restriction of the zone over which DIB is going to operate for parking, that seemed to be like the goal had been to give DIB as much authority to run parking as possible, maybe eventually even to take over some of the red lots or some kind of cooperation there. With the scope restriction, it seems to interfere with that plan. Who's gonna control, run, operate parking outside of that zone? I
think that's what we're working on right now. I don't think what you're going to see is two enforcement entities that will be, you're not going to have two enforcement entities. You're not going to have the city and DIB doing it. I mean, I think the goal is to find a way to make it happen over what is the defined area. But I don't think we've just kind of started that discussion and see what's going to be happening. There are ways that it can be done, and so we're sort of at this point trying to figure out who's going to do it. But I think it would be a duplicative service to have, again, for the majority of the area to have DIB do it, and then us to go run around and put together a force that really only for 403 tickets out of almost less than 22,500 that are in that area. So there's no doubt that the concern is, though, if they implement the policies in the core, it could push parking spaces out into the area. And I think for us, we just got to figure out how it works, who's gonna control it.
So what is the status of those parking spaces right now? If DIB can't enforce them, what happens there?
Yeah, and again, I mean, certainly the police can do it. I mean, I'll talk with Tommy about it, and we'll work through and see what we're going to be doing. But we think there's more productive use for the police officers. We have challenges already. We would rather keep them out of traffic, but in the interim, until we have a solution, that's probably where we'll go. They'll be enforcing traffic because they can do that. But I think long term, we'd like to get a solution that keeps them policing and not worried about traffic. It's probably more productive for us to go other routes. It was interesting. I didn't bring the picture when I was in Singapore, but I said to Tommy, and I teased him about it. They have at the airport where you pull in to make sure there aren't cars, that just stop and go. They have this little robot, and it's about this big, and it just is on wheels, and it just goes back and forth, and it will cite you if you stay too long, but it kind of tells you to move on. It was kind of funny to see something like that. So I don't know if we'll have to have some kind of parking enforcement robots right now, but we don't necessarily have that. But it was kind of interesting to see that. But there's no doubt that our police officers need to be out enforcing issues with crime. So I think we do want to find a solution fairly quick to the traffic situation. Yes.
On the 5G issue,
Yes.
I talked about the city could draft an ordinance to enforce that in I know y'all are enforcing it in historical areas.
For aesthetic standards, correct.
Yeah. I guess, is there any thought to draft that to apply to the whole city?
We have been working with what we've generally told them to do is in areas that they be consistent with what is happening in the neighborhoods that are there. If they're in a neighborhood that has concrete poles, we've asked them to look at something like that. If it's a wooden pole, we've asked them, we probably could maybe create something more, and we could look at that necessarily citywide. We haven't necessarily had as many complaints. The complaints we've had have not been at all on the aesthetics. It's been more on I don't want to be next to a tower. So no one has yet came to us and said, hey, just put it here if you make it look a little bit better. Certainly in the downtown area, we've gotten that complaint and we can control it. I think the people who have also complained just don't like having it there. It's this kind of on both sides what are there. I mean, obviously the things that technology will allow us to do with 5G, and we've seen that in a variety of things that are happening going forward, are very promising. The challenge is what is the true health nature of that. That's one of the reasons when I was in DC in October that I asked the FCC to do an independent study. I mean, that was the thing I was most consistent on. There are a lot of people up there that are like, hey, you got to ban this or stop this or do something else. I mean, my issue is just give me a third party that tells me what is the truth on the impact of health. I think if we did that, we don't know what was going on. It would be a much more productive. We could figure out what we needed to do. So to me, if FCC could do that and have an independent third party test of what the real impact of health is, that would be probably more productive for cities, counties, and the citizens themselves, so that we know what the real risk is. I don't know. I mean, we got 1, 2, 3, 4G already. I mean, I don't know what the impact is of those. I mean, I don't know that anybody else does, and how 5G is any worse or any less. I mean, I continue to be told it's actually less. That's why they send out less, emit less, I guess, of the signals compared to when they did the larger ones that were emitting more. So again, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. So I don't know. That's why I asked the FCC to do that, and I think it would be perhaps the most productive thing on this 5G argument that we could get, because there's no doubt at the same time there's a desire. Again, the technology is not going away, and so from that standpoint, how do we make it all work?
Is there, when you're going to Tallahassee, you talk about preemption, is there another issue like 5G that you think is brewing that people are
Vacation rentals is big right now. I mean, I'm sure they had everything from down to, they wanted to stop us from being able to charge license fees, do a number of different things. I mean, there are always a host of bills that are out there. I think the league does a great job. FAC and the league do a great job of knocking a lot of those things out before they get there. But certainly my desire in coming here at the end is seeing if there's anything else we can do on any of those that are still out there. And I continue to see stuff coming in on vacation rentals. Listen, it's not as big of an issue as it was for me when I was on the beach, but vacation rentals can be a very tough issue to work with people in neighborhoods. I mean, it would be great if local governments could set the standards, or even if local governments didn't set the standards, if we could work with the legislature to then establish standards that generally everybody else, because the legislature always says, well, if we give all of them, there's always, out of 460 of you cities, there's always one crazy one that goes way out there. Well, then my position would be, why don't you establish credible things that by and large most of us, the majority of cities, could agree with? If you could set those standards, that would be a clear indication. But just saying no standards and you can't do anything about it, it does create challenges in our neighborhoods, and it's unfortunate. I mean, the same thing happened with 5G. So these are just things that we work with against preemptions. I've been doing it this is my 14th year of fighting preemptions. I'm going to continue to do it. I was president of Florida Association of Counties because I believe significantly about the importance of home rule and what local government does. So I've spent most of my political life arguing for that, so I'm not going to stop on trying to talk about issues with preemption. Yes?
The person you talked about hiring last week to work with schools and churches in regards to gun violence, you said you were going to get somebody in here pretty quick. Has there been any movement on that?
A little bit. We are working on that, but I was told, and I meant that was one thing Keith did remind me, and he's laughing back there. He's got a smile on his face because he did tell me that, and I forgot to say something. Keith came back to me and said, hey, if we move real fast, we can get this done in 6 weeks. So I think I said 3 last week, so add 3 more weeks onto that. But my goal is to get it done as fast as possible. It is going to be a little bit longer than I thought last week, and they told me. But after starting it last week and the discussions that came back from HR, that we could have this probably done within 6 weeks, and so they're continuing to work through it. I hope to have something out on the streets in the next week or so. So again, that's the expectation. I think everything that's happening shows it more and more. I went last week to meet with the Mr. Powell got me an appointment to meet with the Baptist Union last week, and had a good discussion with them. And I think overall they were receptive to the concept. And again, I told them, I said, the concept is really vague right now because I don't know. It's going to have to, as we started, it's going to have some latitude to turn because it may change in different directions. But the idea is to try to keep it fairly vague at this point and figure out what it is that are the solutions and how do we go do it and keep it nimble enough to be able to turn. So again, I think that's what we want to do. And as I explained to them, I'm not coming out to the neighborhoods and saying, I have the solution and this is what we're going to do. I've come out and said, we realize this is a problem and we want to work on the solution, but we don't presuppose what that solution is. We are simply saying we want to engage. And we want to engage in that dialogue that begins to point us in things all over. Again, I don't expect the answer to be one silver bullet. I expect it to be a number of different things that we do. And I think that's what's going to be important in here. I think if you're expecting, if there was one single thing that could be done and it would stop all this, then we would have already done it. So this is a complex problem, and it will require a complex solution. And part of that is simply getting somebody in there to begin to look at it and interact. And the more we discuss it, the more discussions we have about it, the more it will lead to solutions that can help us that are sustainable. But again, we're going to have to evaluate all the things. I mean, since we talked about it last week, I've gotten people who've sent me stuff in emails and social media posts and a variety of other things that have said, hey, have you thought about these kind of things? And I said, this is good. I mean, people are talking about it. When you start talking about it, you start figuring out solutions. But again, it's always one of those where not everything works. Keith said this, certainly Chris, this is one of the reasons I brought him in. I tell Chris all the time that I have ideas. That doesn't mean they're all good ideas. I expect you to tell me what's good and what's not. And so that's kind of what we're going to work through. There are a lot of ideas coming into us. Some of them will be great ideas. Some of them will not be, but we're going to listen to all of them and try to evaluate and figure out which ones are really doable out of that. So, that's what we see that person engaging in. And I would like to say Lawrence has done a lot of that right now already. He's been kind of doing that. But the problem is we got Lawrence. We got new neighborhood associations. You just picked up one in the garden on West Garden. We picked up some other ones. We're trying to get the one in Eau Claire back organized. So again, we've got a number of things that we want to do neighborhoods all over that isn't just attached to this one issue, which is why we felt like it needed to be focused on. But it's not something Lawrence can do by himself because he's got other things he's doing in every neighborhood. We got something going. That's our whole goal. Yes.
So I think we're all trying to get our teeth into this idea of what's being accomplished here. And I'll give you the uncharitable view, and you can kind of help me understand it better. So we're putting out to hire a position that we don't know quite what they're going to do. We don't know quite how long they're going to do it. It's a long-term plan, so you can't judge by whether there's shootings this week or next week, whether it's working or not. And it just seems so vague and nebulous. Like, we get the general idea, but how will we know even if it's working or how long to keep this person employed? It seems like a brand new position for
I think we'll figure out whether we're making progress. I think you can tell it will take time. It will take, I think we'll be able to know whether we're making progress in neighborhoods. It'll take probably 6 months to a year to know whether we're making progress. But this is an important topic. And I don't think this is something that is, I mean, certainly the violence has become more new. But the root causes behind the violence are not new. I mean, they're just, we address them in different ways. Our whole goal is to continue to address those things in there. But at the same time, it's like the neighborhood's position. We've created that, and what is our goal and where do we go? I mean, our goal is really to make everything better. Now that sounds awful nebulous and what's going to happen, but at the end of the day, I think we're seeing progress, and we're seeing progress in all neighborhoods. If we're not doing well in every neighborhood, then we got problems. So that's the goal by which we want to be measured, and the same thing's going to happen here. But we clearly know we have a problem. These are things we continue to talk about. It's not like it's new. We've talked about generational poverty challenges we've had. I think we have for the first time ever. I've tried to be very clear when I come here and talk about opportunities right now in workforce training and other things that we haven't had before. So now's the time for us to be serious and more committed into this. And again, I think it's worth doing. And the whole reason I would say continuing to do the same thing over and over again and expecting us to somehow change is that's when I looked at it and said it's not going to happen. So my issue is how do we engage? And I think if we engage and get in there, we'll start finding solutions. We won't be able to implement them all. They're not all going to be great ideas, but we can continue to work them. And if you get an idea and you figure out 80% of it's good, then try to do that 80% of it and keep working forward. So I think that's what we're going to do. It's the same kind of thing we did when we did neighborhoods and we created it over there. I do think we're making progress. I see things happening in all neighborhoods. We're creating more engagement. More engagement creates better citizens that want to do more for their community, and it's just like more engaged employees. So all of that's a measure of what we're doing and trying to be participating in those neighborhoods. thank you very much. I appreciate the, I won't see you next week. I guess Keith will be up here next week. But we will see you the following week.